And then the other thing is to try and agree and commit to a regular bedtime. So this links to the circadian rhythm. So there's two really important things here. We generally look for regularity, and that regularity is the wake time and the corresponding bedtime. And this is hard to find, or at least it can be. So the wake time is generally governed by getting up for school, the amount of time that you need to get ready in order to do that, okay? The bedtime is best established by doing backward math. So working your way back from what the wake time has to be so you can get up for school every day, and the amount of sleep that we're hoping for. So you heard the numbers, like we're ideally looking for somewhere between 8 to 10 hours, and working your way backwards to what a suitable bedtime might be. One of the most important things when sleep has been a struggle is that we have regularity. And the recommendation is that it's 7 days a week without too much disruption, not more than an hour over the weekends. Now, I know that can be hard to do, but I want you to know that maintaining a regular sleep pattern, even over 1 month, can really help to generate the practices and the processes that help initiate sleep and then in turn maintain sleep as well. So again, the bedtime and the time that we're going to prepare for it is important, and the wake time is important as well, and how we wake up is significant. So again, try to avoid the snooze button as much as possible, because that can be dysregulatory, and also allowing enough time in the morning so that it isn't hugely rush. It's not a huge rush in the morning, so that there's we put an emphasis on a bedtime routine, and we'll come to that in a moment. And you'll remember when they were much younger, the emphasis and the grand scale of the bedtime routine, but the post-sleep ritual is nearly as important. So how we get up, how we expose ourselves to bright and natural light. And again, this is tying into circadian rhythm. The use morning light and movement have scientifically proven to be very good indicators for helping nighttime sleep to emerge. So exposure to bright natural light, not being rushed, having that connection with them in the morning, and then of course doing our best to have that level of connection in the evening time as well. Outside activity, fresh air, and exposure to natural light throughout the course of the day. And then I know this can be hard, but whenever possible, trying to avoid strenuous training or exercise maybe 2 hours, 2-3 hours before the bedtime, the predicted bedtime that we would be doing the backward math to understand that that's what they need. And then of course we look at that relationship to food and drink. So regularity is key. Regular wake time, eating and drinking at regular times will help promote cues and the signals to the body to help support better sleep. And I suppose it can be difficult, but I would still encourage breakfast to regulate the blood sugar levels and kickstart the metabolism. But be very mindful of, the caffeinated products, alcohol, high sugar, refined carbohydrates, and nicotine that act as a stimulant and impact all of our sleep onset, maintenance, and totals. So for example, caffeine can take 3 to 7 hours to eliminate from the system, and longer depending on the intake levels. So again, it's being mindful of that, as well as, some of the over-the-counter medications that contain caffeine, but more importantly here, maybe the energy drinks and the vapes that Emmett has mentioned earlier as well. And whilst we would avoid the exercise when possible. Now, I know a lot of children will be doing training and that in advance. It's very close to bedtime, but also we try to avoid heavy meals 2 to 3 hours before bedtime too. So obviously we don't want to be going to bed hungry, but there are light supper type foods like the banana, wholemeal, oatmeal, dairy, honey, nuts and seeds that have sleep promoting qualities. So we're trying to create a series of impulses that can help initiate the onset of sleep. And then I know Emmett's touched on this, and so I'm going to as well, but like the electronic media and screens do have a big impact on how our children experience their sleep. So there was a National Sleep Foundation poll that found that adolescents that had less than 4 media devices in a bedroom got significantly less sleep on both school and non-school nights. They were more likely to fall asleep when they're doing their homework, and they did drink more caffeinated products as well. However, on the other hand, and this was, we're always looking at the positive, adolescents reported getting more than 8 hours sleep per night. They did seem to engage in less technology-related activities after 9 p.m. compared to their peers who reported getting less sleep. So we'll circle back into that in a minute in terms of phone use and when we might stop using it. like increased mobile phone use. Like absolutely, it is a huge part of their lives. But even daily use has shown some cases to impact sleep negatively and increase daytime sleepiness as well. So we've got a big responsibility where the electronic media and screens are concerned. So the general suggestion is to try and avoid electronics in about an hour or so before bedtime. I think it can be important to, set a loving boundary, a digital boundary around this, open conversations. And I think we need to set an example too, that if we're trying to help them to use gadgets less close to sleep time, then if we create a digital boundary, one sensible thing to sometimes do is to replace this activity with another activity. So rather than just kind of having a blanket, okay, no gadgets after a certain time, we might then begin to introduce alternate activities that we do alongside our children, or that they do themselves, and we're encouraging that. So I'm not sure if it's going to surprise you to hear that often if sleep is difficult, we begin to prepare for sleep about an hour to an hour and a half before you hope and expect lights out. So remember, we did the backward math to what bedtime might be in your household. So let's say it's going to be 10 o'clock, lights out, or whatever it's going to be, then you're going to try and maybe wind things down 1 to 1.5 hours before the set bedtime when the lights go out. That might mean 30 minutes to an hour of a relaxing activity that happens outside of the bedroom. And then that might mean 20 or 30 minutes in the bedroom itself before lights go out. So obviously mentioning screens, like watching a movie, we consider that to be a passive activity, or watching a TV program on the television, or reading with like a low light, red light, again, positive. But trying to avoid, let's say, video games would be interactive, or even just watching a TV show on the laptop that's close, or reading with bright lights. So the big question is, like, how do we keep making these transitions? Because that's what sleep is. It's a series of transitions, and you're trying to make the transition as easy as possible with your young person. So I guess we might return to the look at calm activities that they can do. And don't forget, this can be done with your child, your young person, or solo, directed by themselves. So just some suggestions that we might do with low lighting in the evening time, switching off and listening to music or watching TV, drawing, journaling, reading, relaxation activities, yoga, meditation, doing a word search, doing a crossword, doing some coloring or puzzles or jigsaw, or just having family time. You're trying to create an alternate to perhaps what they really want to be doing, which is be on a gadget and maybe interacting with their friends. So just in this hour or so, or half hour before, we might say goodbye to the friends, and then we might start to begin this sort of wind down process. I know obviously with some of our teens, there's a lot of, they don't want to interact a lot of the time, but their deep-seated need for all children is to be seen, heard, loved, safe and secure, and belonging to the holding world of your family. So it's trying to create that context as best as we possibly can, and making time and space to be with them, which can feel difficult after a long day. But again, it's just trying to help that better transition to sleep. And then we're listening, we're available to them. And then you've got the other part where they do maybe a bit of their bedtime routine in the bedroom itself. So we're almost leading towards this. Now, the good news is these times, like an hour and a half before bedtime, when sleep becomes more established and it working better within your household, I absolutely find that these times can be shaved, and there's less time in the lead up to it, because the brain and the body becomes in sync. The messaging is really clear and clean, and the brain and the body can begin to switch off with greater ease. So we just think of it like a segue and an intensive exercise that you might begin to initiate slowly, if that feels right, and then helping them, being in their bedroom, and that they would follow some preparation. So maybe teeth, makeup removal, a bath, I'm sure you're all aware, can be helpful from a sleep point of view. Having the same ritual every night can be helpful too, getting to pajamas, doing a little bit of journaling, reading a book, listening to some music, having a chat, lights out, so that you've got this lean in to sleep time. Obviously, anxiety, worries, thoughts, feelings. 40% of sleep challenges can be because of stress and anxiety. And that when the lights go out, unwanted thoughts, feelings flood the mind, increase adrenaline, encourage the fight and flight mode that can make going to sleep and returning to sleep really quite challenging. And I suppose the more you might try and encourage a person not to worry or think about certain things, the harder it is to get to sleep, and the more elusive it comes. And there's a cycle of tension psychologically between the person and their sleep. And I guess a lot of time when we're trying to navigate sleep challenges or difficulty switching off or having that racing mind is first to establish and address the cycle of tension, to kind of understand the root issue, what it is, what is the meaning, what is the metaphor. And sometimes, seeking professional help to help guide and collaborate with our young person for them to understand, what is causing the anxiety in the first place, and uncovering the true source of what is hidden there, so that they can, deepen their journey, and also they can begin to explore and develop coping mechanisms that will help initiate sleep better. I mentioned journal there as part of the relaxing, exercising, but journaling is a really positive and powerful way to reflect and work on what is arising for the individual. And then similarly, keeping a sleep diary can also be a very helpful way for a family unit to begin to identify vulnerable areas and what helps and what hinders as well. Once the